Welcome to the Rise Above Show, presented by RoofCON. My name is Diego Dante, and I'm thrilled to bring you inspiring conversations with some of the most innovative and bright minds in our industry. From business and entrepreneurship to personal development and growth, we'll explore the strategies, insights, and stories that have helped our guests rise above challenges, overcome adversity, and achieve their goals. So sit back, relax, and join us on this journey of empowerment, inspiration, and discovery. This is the Rise Above Show. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Rise Above Show presented by RoofCON. My name is Diego Dante. I'm here on a fun live episode that we're going to do today with Michelle of 24-Hour Bookkeeper.
Hey.
How are you, Michelle?
I am wonderful. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be here. Even more excited to with that RoofCON commercial, pumping me up, getting ready for RoofCON coming up. So,
RoofCON is going to be so exciting. We've got so much stuff. I don't want to go into it so much yet. Maybe we'll talk a little bit here at the end, but I am also super, super excited. We've got 41 days as of today till RoofCON. So if you're in the comments too, the cool thing about this episode with it being live is that you get to interact with us. So let us know if you're excited for RoofCON, drop it in the comments. We want to hear about it. But yeah, we're excited about RoofCON. We're excited to have you guys there. I believe you guys were one of the first vendors that actually signed up for RoofCON this year too. So we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, we couldn't wait after last year. It was phenomenal. Great speakers, just great experience, great people. So we, I think we ended up booking before we even left the show last year. So excited to be back again this year.
Yeah. So cool. So, all right. I wanted to get to do this. I know in our conversation, one of the things that we talked about was, hey, one of the big things that contractors deal with is knowing their numbers, and not just that, but being able to scale in a healthy fashion. I think a lot of us just get super excited to, oh man, we just brought in these big checks and we're going to go out, we're going to buy a big truck or whatever is the fun and exciting thing. And so I said, you know, a lot of us, after we start doing this, we realize how important it is to have really healthy and smart cash flow. And so I said, let's go do this webinar where we talk through some of these things and we show people what are some of the things that we need to track so that we make sure that we're scaling in a healthy fashion.
Absolutely. We get caught chasing that dollar, right? So when we chase that dollar, which is great, I mean, that's why we work hard, right? You work hard to put money in your pocket and provide. And but at the end of the day, you want to do it in a way that's actually going to make you successful, and being aware of some of those things that we need to track. We grow. So not just chasing that revenue dollar, but being aware of other things that you might not think of.
Yeah. So this episode is called The 5 Metrics That You Need to Track. And so I know that you've got a presentation. If you're listening to this on the audio later, because we will re-release this, I would recommend going through and watching the video, but we are going to make sure that we explain everything. So Michelle, if you will go ahead and share your screen, let's go through these things and let's chat about the 5 things that contractors need to track, the 5 metrics that contractors need to track.
Absolutely. And it's not, in this presentation, you can see this all right here, everybody. Awesome. So the 5 metrics you need to track, right? It sounds like it should just be 5 simple things. I'm going to give you 5 keys to success. You're going to run away and make millions of dollars, right? But the reality is, and a couple of things I like to touch on first is I really want to I don't want to just talk about those metrics, because metrics are only powerful if you have conviction and you have truth behind them. So I'm actually going to rewind a couple steps before we get to those key metrics and just talk about where we should be starting, some benefits of just having a good process. And then we're going to dig into the key metrics and then just kind of touch on some intentional growth.
So before we get to that, can we go back one slide real quick and let's get to really know Michelle too, because I just want to make sure that the people understand that it's always important, I feel like, to understand that the people we're listening to know what they're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. So it'd be the same way that I'm not going to be your, if I got up on stage and I started talking about how to get a 6-pack, I probably wouldn't be the guy for that, right? So I guess this question might sound kind of weird, but what is it that qualifies Michelle to be able to give us and 24-hour bookkeeper to talk to us about these metrics today?
Yeah, thank you. I just skipped right over myself. Who wants to talk about myself? But you're right. Good place to start. So I work for 24-hour Bookkeeper. I have worn many different hats here at 24-hour Bookkeeper. Our company provides financial management services for contractors specifically, builders, roofing, exterior contractors, as all the way down to welders, any other types of subcontractors. We kind of help specialize really in that construction niche, and we do everything from consulting to monthly bookkeeping. And the company has been around for about 10 years providing outsourced bookkeeping. People always ask, we don't really have any local clients. We have a couple. It's kind of how the company started. But then I kind of came on. I've been with 24-hour Bookkeeper for 7 years now. And clients, our home base is kind of centralized up in Minnesota, but you all know listening, Minnesota is not a it's a very seasonality construction community. So most of our clients are kind of all over the United States, coastal states where construction and chasing those storms for those roofers. So,
what's interesting is that we were just looking through some of the demographics for RoofCON a few days ago, and Minnesota was, I believe, like the 5th or 6th state most represented at RoofCON, which is really interesting to me. I was not expecting that. It was like Florida, then Florida, then Texas, then Georgia, South Carolina, and then Minnesota, or something. It was along those lines. So I thought that was really interesting. So
yeah, we got, and it's just the hail, the storms we get around here, right? I know we kind of track those a little bit. That is interesting. I love it. The snow, all the damage that our severe weather conditions up here probably do to our homes. So yeah, I can imagine that. And maybe people want to escape down to Florida, in the middle of November.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. Thank you for giving us that introduction. Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead, give you the floor here to really start going through some of these metrics.
Yeah. And please, at any point, throw some comments in the chat, make it interactive. Diego, if you think of anything as I'm moving through it, please share your perspective, ask questions, poke at this. I really want want people to feel it's useful. And I always start with, people say, I want to grow my company. I'm ready to scale. I'm ready to do these things. What now? Right? Like, where do I go now? What do I do? I'm ready. So the first thing I always ask is like, are you ready? Like, are you really ready? And in some ways I would say, yeah, you're ready do you have a good, and we're going to get all the way back to square one. Some of this might sound silly to you, but the goal is that whether you are just starting your business, you're 5 years in your business, or you're a $20 million contract, I hope that somewhere along this presentation or this conversation that you can get something out of it. But we're going to go back to square one. And that really is, do you have a good financial management? What does that mean? Are you utilizing an account? Are you just running your numbers off of a spreadsheet, off of pen and paper, off of a gut feeling? Or are we really a business where you're utilizing an accounting software? And that's kind of that's the key, right? Because you can only scale so much on a spreadsheet. And don't get me wrong, I love a good spreadsheet. I love a good formula, but at some point there's so many tools out there to help us automate that process, because what you think you can run a spreadsheet for 10 projects, but that quickly, as you want to scale and you get to 100 projects, 50 projects, that same process that worked for 10 doesn't work for 50. So having things in place like an accounting software, such as QuickBooks Online. We're big QuickBooks Online users. I think it is a user-friendly platform as far as an accounting software goes, right? I mean, accounting software is accounting software, but I think as far as user-friendly, I think QuickBooks is it. It can kind of help, again, it can help you run the $100,000 business and the $25 million business. It can, and there's tons of resources out there. So if you're looking for a place to start, I need to start getting my numbers. I need to start tracking my accounts, and QuickBooks Online sometimes is a good place to start. And then I want to grow.
It's funny that you said, you said the process that got you to, your first 10 or whatever isn't what's going to get you to 100. And then the process that got you to 100 isn't what's going to get you, to 1,000. We, when I was running a roofing company, we started out and everything was just on Google Sheets. And that seemed smart for the first couple months when we were only doing a few repairs and a few, you know, a few repairs and an install here and there. But then 5 months in, we're doing, 3, 4 installs a week. And now it's impossible to keep track of in
Mhm.
Google Sheets. And I'm sure other people have been there too, where then you start looking at different products like QuickBooks or anything else, to be able to start scaling that.
Yeah, because as much as you can run a Google Sheet, and again, you Excel masters out there, you can run it. It just becomes what's your time worth, right? You can continue to do certain things, but at some point too, sometimes it's like, okay, where is my time best spent? And is it day in and day out managing a spreadsheet, or is there a software that's going to help automate and I can, delegate, right? Delegating is a huge part of growth. And whether it's delegating to a software that can create some efficiencies or delegating to people, that's going to be a big key to your growth. And spreadsheets are just manual, so find something that's going to help you, some automation tools. Again, even if it's not accounting software, what's step one that's going to take you from manual with your hands in it? Because you have to think what's your ultimate goal, right? Is my ultimate goal not to be the one running the spreadsheet? So if I had to plug somebody else into doing what I'm doing, would they know what to do? And typically spreadsheets are really a reflection of our own brains, right? They kind of are our own brains compass as to what our vision is. But if you sometimes try to plug people into those things, they don't run. Find things that are going to help you systemize and scale. And that ties back into project management software too, as you know, right? You can run projects on spreadsheets. But again, as you grow and you're starting to schedule, and now these 10 jobs have 50 jobs, and these 50 jobs have 2 invoices, and they have your 10 bills on 10 jobs went to 50 to 100 bills, and it happens quickly. So again, that project management software that really is going to help you manage your leads, because follow-up is huge. Your reputation will be huge. And then tracking documents, storing pictures, right? Now it's protecting yourself from a project standpoint, and having those two things in place is kind of step one. And in my opinion,
Yeah. Okay,
so
let's
now
let's
the
keep going
go ahead.
here.
Yeah. So now, so again, we go back to square one. We have a system now. Okay, we've checked those 2 boxes. Now it's time to get a grip on what you have going on. It's time business on the gut feeling and the dollar amount that my bank account shows when I log in. Right. I like the saying Steve Patrick once said through a conversation that cash isn't king, cash flow is king. Just
Mm.
because you have money in your bank account does not mean that you are profitable, right? Just because your bank account says I have $50,000, I have $20,000, is that money really yours, right? Or is that money already out, need to pay your credit card bills? Does that money are paying subcontractors, paying your suppliers? So don't live on that dollar amount in your bank account. Really understand what the cash flow is, because that's when you will be successful. Uh, in this industry, in any industry, really, your subcontractor and supplier relationships are crucial. And if your subcontractors don't get paid on time and are bouncing checks, it's not gonna be a great relationship, right? You want people to, that's how you run it. That's how you run a business. They get paid on time efficiently. And that starts with managing your cash flow.
Where do you
Uh,
see the biggest um, problems, or what do you think is the biggest thing that holds people back from having a healthy cash flow?
I think it's reactiveness. So it's just reacting to whatever is hitting my desk that day and whichever person is screaming the loudest, right? It's that loss of control, because now I've grown and even grown. Maybe it's not having a system, and you're just writing checks and paying bills, and you don't really know if you have enough to cover your payroll this week because you just wrote 10 checks and you're not really sure. So it's just this reactive mindset, and it does take it's making a change, right? To say, I got to stop the train. I got to pause the train. Maybe not stop it completely, but I got to pause, and I got to put a system in place so that I'm not out of control with how my money's coming in and out of my business. I need to regain control. I need to be more proactive to say, and I'm going to get into process, which is really what's going to help transition you for people who don't have good cash flow to being someone who at least has an idea of where their cash flow is at. And that's really going to come with, things such as not spending on debit cards, right? Spend on credit cards and pay them off. Taking advantage of supplier terms with ABC and all these great opportunities, some 30-day net terms terms, some 60-day net terms, right? To collect from insurance and turn around, not just signing the check the minute the job is completed and that subcontractor walks off the job. Creating that expectation up front, right? You're going to get paid on Friday. Submit your invoices by Monday. Our team reviews them to make sure, number one, you did the work. I didn't just pay you and you walked off and I never saw you again. And number two, now I have control over that system. I didn't just write you a check out in the field. This cash comes and goes in your business. You have money going in, money going out. That's business, right? It's constantly going, but cash flow is ongoing. The movement of your money through your business, when you can understand that and control that, that's going to help you be successful.
I'm sure we're going to talk through, we were talking about what's actually, there's money coming in, there's money going out, and I might be jumping the gun a little bit here, but in the sense of, what's actually your profit margins after you've already, in knowing that, where do you see, is this something we're going to get into? Cause I've got some profit questions.
100%. We're going to get to those metrics, and gross profit is the number one metric you have to track.
Great. I'll keep my questions for then.
That's okay. That's all right. I'm kind of jumping around. I know it's kind of like, it sounds silly to like go back to the basics, but sometimes it's that hold on, pause the train and like revisit your processes, right?
Yeah.
Again,
getting a lot of fire emojis in the comments. So I think people are liking all this. Make sure you drop your finance questions if you've got some questions about healthy cash flow and just running a profitable roofing business. Keep going.
Yeah, and payables is such a big part of the roofing industry, of any construction industry, but your jobs happen so fast, right? They're open one day, closed the next. You're not building things. Unless you're into commercial roofing, then yes, you have projects that last a little longer. But with the opening and closing of jobs, you really got to stay on top of that and have a good, tight system when it comes to payables. Otherwise, money is just being spent on a constant basis. Credit card receipts are racking up. And a big thing I see and again, when you think of a cash flow position and improving your cash flow, a lot of money is lost on credit card receipts that aren't being tracked, right? So I have my field employees and they have the power to spend that they have to turn in that receipt so I can make sure it gets back against that job. Think about, and I like to tie it back to commissions, right? We all probably pay commissions. And if you're paying commissions on a gross profit or at the end of the job, think about how many missed receipts didn't get turned on, that you could have overpaid commissions or underpaid commissions for that matter. So those tightening up those processes sounds silly, but it's like, if I'm giving you power to spend money out of my company bank account, there's a process for you turning in that receipt, or you're not getting paid your commissions, or putting in some cold hard rules. Otherwise, that is the biggest area I see of loss, is those Home Depot material receipts, those Lowe's, those hardware store things. And you think, oh, it was $100 here, $50 here, but I can tell you what, I've seen it add up really, really quickly to tens and thousands of dollars in companies that just slips through the cracks.
That's really good.
Right. Another point too, when you think of payables, we're not just telling you put the process in place, but what can you take advantage of to, get a break on some of your spending? So taking advantage of really pay discounts. Now you can't do that unless you have good cash flow and you have a system in place that, everything's being turned in, job costed, and I can now pay my invoice on the 5th because I have good cash flow. I know what money in the bank is mine. I know what receivables I've collected on. I know what money's still outstanding, and take advantage of rebates, right? There's opportunities out there for you also to give yourself a break on some of those jobs. And sometimes we just have to jump and process, right? If I don't have a system in place to say on the 4th, I approve receipts, on the 5th, that gets paid. So I can get my 2% back, my 1% back, right? That those again can be huge money makers for a company, which put more money in your pocket at the end of the day. Receivables too. So, all these processes, right? If you had to break apart your financial process as a whole, it starts with payables. It's probably your receivables, right? Let's not forget about collecting from our customers. And I kind of put this here because you can't just send the invoice and forget it. You can't just send one email and forget it. It's not sending the invoice. It's being aggressive in how you collect that, because a lot of money, and time goes by. Again, if you think busy scaling, now I don't just have 10 jobs to track down. Now I have 50, and you don't want those to get lost in the shuffle. So being diligent in your follow-up on process for follow-up. Once this invoice hits 10 days overdue, what do you do? And once it hits 30 days, what do I do? And once it hits 90 days, what do I do? Do I send it to collections? Because again, it happens quickly and the AR piles up fast. So really having your finger on top of money that's owed to you is key.
So I've got some people here commenting. Got one person saying good stuff for Friday afternoon. Someone saying such good info on cash flow. The person that said such good info on cash flow is Emily, my finance director here at RoofCON. So I know she gets tired of chasing me around asking for me to submit my expense reports. So
well, especially, it's funny as far as it's 2023, right? You could say like, oh, technology, and there is so many wherever you're the fix for it. Like, that's what I tell people when you talk about process and getting to there's usually a pain point as to why you can't get to the metric or why you keep hitting like a growth ceiling, right? Why do you keep hitting your head? And typically it's like dig into what process is the most painful and like solve it. So if receipt management is your biggest pain point in your business, there's things out there like Divvy, right? There's different apps out there. Now some people are like, it's one more thing to implement. However, if that is the biggest pain point in your business, then it's time to give it the attention and solve it. If it's the reason you keep hitting your head on that ceiling because you don't have anybody managing your receivables because your salespeople send out the invoice but don't follow up on it because you pay before you've gotten paid, right? Hey, red flag. I need to put some ownership maybe on my salespeople to follow up on those invoices, right? So think about where's your biggest headache and then start there, solve that first. And small things make a huge difference when it comes to cash flow.
Love it.
And, month end, right? Every good financial bookkeeping process has to have month end, you have to have some source of truth that all this money's being spent all month, money's going in, money's coming out, but where's your source of truth to double check all that work, that's all that money that's going in and out of your business. So doing a proper closeout, reconciling your accounts against bank statements, right? Really knowing that now it's not just your gut. Now it's like it checks out with your source of truth, which is your bank, your statements, all that good stuff. Because at the end of the day, don't you want to know if you actually made money or not? Don't stop living off a gut feeling and start really trusting it and be able to close that month out and confidently say like, yes, we have 10,000, we have 20,000 in the bank, and I can confidently say our profit this month was 10,000. Fantastic.
It's so funny how, I've been in the situation before, again, running a roofing company where it's, where we didn't do a good job of this in the beginning and we were running off of, again, what was in the bank account. And that was at the beginning and it was, oh man, we're doing great. And then you get to the end of, you start reconciling your books and you're like, oh, I only made X amount of dollars because we weren't actually that profitable. We just had money in the bank.
Missed. Yeah. Right? I was talking to a client the other day and he just started a company and he said, he asked all over what's the best piece of advice you can give someone starting their own business. And they said bookkeeping. Like, first of all, outsource your bookkeeping, whether you do or don't, but just like have a good bookkeeper, right? Have knowledge. Don't wait until you're a month, a year in, 2 years in and be like, I probably should have tracked that. Don't wait to do that. Cause I think I've heard that a lot. Like if I could go back, I would have done my bookkeeping better from the beginning. I would have tracked this better from day one. Right. I hear that a lot when people, and the couple new that said that was actually the advice they got. And it is an investment to invest in a person or your time or a company to do your bookkeeping properly. But, a lot of times it can be the best investment you make because it can keep you afloat.
I think that a lot of that's such a good advice all around because one of the things that's a big problem for a lot of companies is that we start to do tasks that we don't like to do and we're not good at. We really need to figure out, okay, what are the things that I'm really, really good at? Or the things that I enjoy doing and stick in those quadrants of our business. If there's things that we don't enjoy doing / we're not good at, those are the things that we need to start looking to be able to outsource.
Yeah.
For a lot of contractors that I've seen, they're either really, really good on the operations side on, either they came up on the labor side or, just on in construction in general and roofing. And so they've decided to start their own company, or they came up on the sales side where, they learned how to sell roofs and they started a roofing company at some point. And those two types of people typically, if that's the thing that you're good at, find the people that now are really good at those other things. So if you're really good at sales, okay, well now you might be pretty good at marketing also, but maybe I'm just making generalizations, but maybe you're not great at the fulfillment side. So you're going to find like an ops manager that's going to help you out on that side. And then you're going to outsource the bookkeeping part. Or if you're really good at the fulfillment side, you're going to go out and you're going to find sales, maybe like a sales manager that can start handling that part, and maybe outsourcing the bookkeeping side. But just all around, find the things that you're good at and that you enjoy doing. Work on those things. Find the things that you don't enjoy doing and start outsourcing those things. And it just seems like common sense, but a lot of us don't do that. And we start adding on the tasks that we don't enjoy doing. And then we get burnt out from doing all these things that we don't enjoy doing when we could have just outsourced those things and just worked on the things that made us happy.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Your time, what is you, right? That's what I tell people, what is your time worth? And, I hear a lot too, like, well, I can do it. Well, of course you can, right? And you can, but does it drain you? Like you said, it burns you out. If it drains you, delegate it, right? Find where your passion is and put your time and energy there, because running a company is hard enough, and don't spend your time doing the things that drain you. Build your team around you to delegate the pieces that you don't enjoy. Totally.
100%.
I agree with that. And that's the benefit of having a process. So like when you want to grow your team, when you want to delegate these things, a lot of people, delegating kind of comes with this fear of loss of control. And that's why I take it all the way back to process, because if you can't, Karen, our owner, always says you control the systems, not the people, right? So if I put good processes and clear expectations in place, now I didn't lose control. Now I actually gained control because I'm really clear. Now I know who to hold accountable, when to hold them accountable. And they also know the same thing. So now everybody wins because I have a good process. So now I can hold you accountable because I know 100% it is your job to follow up on AR that's 61 and over, for example.
I think also with that, when it comes to keeping people accountable, you need to understand at least the basics. A lot of the times we just feel like, oh, I'm not good at this thing, so I'm going to use marketing as the example. I'm not good at marketing, so I'm just going to hire out a marketing agency. And then months down the road, we get upset that no results came from it. Yeah. And so we just get upset. We fire the marketing agency. We go to the next one. And it could be the same thing with bookkeeping of, hey, I'm going to hire this bookkeeping, this third-party bookkeeper, and a few months down the road, we get upset about something that happened when in reality, maybe we don't even understand the process. And so there has to be a base level of understanding for you to be able to keep the people that you're hiring accountable, even if it means, hey, maybe I don't understand everything, but at the very least, I understand enough to keep someone accountable.
Yeah. And letting them know, like, I don't know a lot in this area, but I just want you to know this is your space to own. So I also need your help in maybe on some pieces, but communicating that too, that like, I'm not the expert, you are. So that means I'm trusting you to also give me knowledge and help me learn the things that I need to know, because I'm putting you in place because I know and I trust that you're capable to run bookkeeping, to run advertising, to run my sales department, right? But just because I'm giving you that power doesn't mean do whatever you want. It's hey, I just want to know that you're running it and you're owning it. You're really, truly, whatever that role is, to the fullest.
I think with that, it's, if you don't understand something like this, it's having those KPIs that maybe I don't need to track everything, and I do have access to it if I need it. But, with the point of this, of having 5 key metrics, right? Give your bookkeeper 5 key metrics that I want to have highlighted at the end of the day. So maybe I don't need to be able to see each individual, expense for every little thing, but it is, hey, I do want to see the net profit per job. And I do want to see, these, like what's my AR and my AP and all this stuff.
Yes, and start somewhere, right? Like that's a shame. Like start somewhere, and it's maybe like for you, a lot of people are like, I don't want to like bookkeeping, like I don't want balance sheet, right? Like you said, it doesn't have to be send me a balance sheet. It can be send me these numbers that speak to me, and that's what we're gonna get at here. And we're finally to the meat and potatoes, right? A lot of people when they start working with us or I consult with them, they're like, okay, I want to know my gross profit margin, but I'm like, okay, we got to back up 5 steps because I can't pull your gross profit margin because you didn't job cost anything. So like we're back, let's go back to square one, right? So that's why I always start back 2 steps and then say, okay, when you've done the hard work, when you've done all those things, now we can start looking at your numbers because now we have a place to track, we have clear processes on here, we have checks and balances. Now I know that when I look at your gross profit margin, now we can trust it. So you can't even track these metrics until you have trustable, usable information. And again, kind of like what we were going to just get into before, but the number one metric that people track, I think, in this industry, and that's important to track, is your gross profit margin. So how much money did I make on this job specifically? Have a goal, right? With everything, have a goal. Start somewhere, right? Again, if you're just starting or if you're looking to improve, if you're 40% and you're sitting at 18, okay, well, at least you now can start to evaluate why you're not hitting 40% profit margin. Why are you so low at 18%, right? Because that gross profit margin, your gross is how much you just made on the job. Now, let's not forget, we still have to operate a business.
What do you feel like what are good goals to aim towards if you don't know where you should go? Where do you think is a healthy goal for gross profit margin and then for your true net profit?
I think gross profit margin, a true number that I would strive for is about 40%. Some of you might say, wow, that's big and scary. Some of you might say, oh, I was making 40% 2 years ago. But wherever you're at, I would say try to hit that 40%, 35 to 40%. If you're hitting 40, try to hit 45, right? Keep slimming your margins because maybe it's you'll find if you tighten up your spending, you tighten up your material purchasing, right? You work with good subcontractors, your markup's better, right? You can improve that gross profit margin, but definitely shoot for 40%. If you're at 40, shoot for 50. If you're at 50, shoot for 60. But I would say start shooting for that 35, 40% mark because I think it is attainable. Definitely.
I've got a question here. This is actually a question from Hunter Ballou, and he said, I hear this often from owners and would love for you to give a clear explanation for those who don't understand. What's the difference between margin and markup, and why does it matter?
Good question. So I know we use these big accounting words and they can mean different things to different people, but good to clarify. So your gross profit margin is the difference between the money you brought in on this job and the money you spent on this job. So that's the money that at the end of the day, that's how much money I took home off of this job. When the client paid me, I took out all my fees, I took out my roofer measurements, I took off my ABC purchasing. This is the margin, is the money, the difference between the money I made and the money I spent on the job. Your markup is what you put on the job to get to your price, right? So markup is a number. So I'm taking my costs. So when you go and bid and estimate, right, I'm going to mark this job up. This is what it's going to cost me. If I were to go to the store today, if I were to go to ABC, if I were to put all my numbers on, it's going to cost me $5,000 to do this roof for you. But now I need to make money on that job. So now I need to mark it up. So my markup is the percentage that I'm marking up my expense and charging back to my client. So understanding the difference, and the margin is the reflection of that markup goal. Basically, if I marked my materials and labor up 40%, then at the end of the day, I'm hoping my gross profit margin is also 40%. Hopefully
Awesome.
That helped clarify a little bit.
No, that was really good.
And then so we got our jobs, right? Everyone starting square one, track what you're making on your job. Step 2, let's not forget we have overhead expenses. We have all those things that sometimes I think we forget to look at because that bill's on auto draft. But those are the other things that it costs you to run your business, whether it's cell phone, whether it's gas, whether you have an office and you have rent, whether you have utilities, maybe you have advertising, right? So all those other things that aren't job related, that aren't ABC and Home Depot and Roofer and software, right? Like I have to have an email system. I have to have a Microsoft subscription. So let's not forget that outside of that job, which is why we need to hit a certain profit margin, I still have to operate my business. And that's all my overhead. So understanding your overhead expenses as a percentage of income, that kind of sounds like a big one. But when, that comment about markup, right? If you're not making a net profit, which I'll get to next, it might be because your markup isn't high enough because it costs you $60 to run your company every month. But which is, 60% of my income, and I'm only charging 30. I'm only marking my job up 30, but yet it costs me 60 to operate this business. So a couple things have to happen, and I won't get into the weeds about that, but you can see where now I have numbers. Now I need to evaluate. And knowing your overhead expenses in general, and then the percentage of income can really help you trim up your gross profit and your net. So the third number kind of ties back into everything, which is your net profit. So your net profit is all the revenue I brought in, all my job costs that I spent on jobs, and all my overhead jobs. What did I take home at the end of the day, right? So it is everything. So it's all my revenue, my overhead, and my cost of goods at the end of the month. Did I make money? Your net profit is, did I make money? Gross profit is, did I make money on this job? Net profit is, did I make money, period. Did my company turn a profit this month? So those are 3 really super easy metrics to track right off the bat. And now we're going to get into.
Can I ask you the same question I asked you for gross profit with what should our goal be? Maybe a baseline, like what should we strive to be at baseline for net profit as a percentage?
I would say it really depends on your company size, but if you were going to strive, I would say strive for 15% at the minimum, right? Depends on where you're at in your growth of your business too. Sometimes you're going to see that number drop to 8% because you're growing, right? But again, when we think of growth, right, keeping an eye on that net profit number will be huge because typically you're gonna incur some overhead expenses. So you're gonna be like, my profit margin's great. I sold 20 more jobs. I'm still making 50%. Like, why is my company in the hole $20,000? Well, don't forget through growth, maybe you had to hire an extra salesperson. You had to float them a new you have to spend a little more to make a little more sometimes. So that's where we talk about strategic growth or being really good at tracking things. Net profit percentage, I wouldn't, be very conscious when it drops below 8 to 10%, right? You really ultimately you want to hit maybe 20, say strive for 20. As you're in this growth phase of your business, be very conscious of that number and how that profit is dropping, and always keep an eye on that. That's when you can get in some trouble. And as long as you might make it up, right? Now we're kind of going to get in the accounting weeds when we talk about receivables and unearned revenue and WIP, right? That's like the buzzword, work in progress, right? Those are things that, again, people come to us and they're like, I want to know my WIP. I want to know how much money isn't mine. It's like, okay, let's back up 5 steps. Let's make sure we can track the top 3. And now we can get to understanding your receivables, understanding your true, and I put true AR here. AR is your accounts receivable. So understanding your true money, that's receivables, or money that's owed to you. So understanding what money is actually owed to me. And that's where this unearned revenue ties in. How much of this money that I have been paid isn't mine yet? Because I took a deposit on a job I took 50% down on a $20,000 job. I have $10,000 in my bank. Great. I feel good. But I haven't earned that yet. I haven't done work on that job yet. So if tomorrow the customer comes, I don't want to work with you anymore, I want my 10,000 back. Do you have 10,000 to give them back? And that's what can, I don't want to say sink you, but that's what can change the game real quick, is if you don't understand. Again, that's that, don't run your business based on money in your bank account, because just because you deposited that check in your bank account doesn't mean you've earned it yet.
I saw I don't remember where I saw it, but I saw a video of a gentleman, I think he was in Florida, who took took some money for some jobs and then had some stuff happen, and basically people uh he wasn't able to complete these jobs, and then he got into the hole because just bad managing your money, right? And
Yep.
so yeah, super important to know this stuff because you don't want to be that guy, right? Uh we see it, I feel like we see it way more often than it needs to happen, where people are just, they take money, and maybe a lot of the times it's not to justify those people. It's just, they just weren't smart with their cash flow. I wonder how much of that is not being smart versus actually having malicious intent. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like you didn't operate your business in a smart fashion that got you into a hole that you could have very easily not been in if you would have known your numbers.
Yeah, I mean, think about it in the, here's a great example. Anytime that storm hits, like think of the big hurricane in Florida, people want to just go down, and there's so much work there. So they think, I'm going to go. Well, it's okay in some situations, but as long as you think it through, because not only do you think, oh, I got money in my bank, it's good. I got someone running my business up here, we're good. But did you think about how much of that cost your business will have to float? Because we know insurance companies don't pay. You don't send them an invoice and they turn around and pay it in 5 days. That would be great, right? Float material costs for 3 to 6 months, depending on how long your insurance companies pay you, especially in those big storms, right? Those can really sink businesses, just like you said. Like you kind of get underwater, and it usually happens on the cost side. Now I got to turn around and pay my ABC supply, otherwise I can't get any more materials. But I don't have any money because I thought I had this money, but I really don't, right? So just being very aware of money in my bank is not necessarily mine, and again, thinking of time and roofing can be tough and challenging when you're working with insurance companies. Um,
Was writing down I've got some more questions once we're done, but I
yeah.
don't want to interrupt this piece of it. So go ahead.
No, that's good. And so those key metrics, it's like we kind of went through them fast because you can get really deep in the accounting weeds and the accounting jargon. But again, start somewhere, start with those 3 numbers, right? Start tracking gross profit, just start breaking your jobs apart. I think a big thing too is some people are afraid to look because they maybe either don't understand completely, they don't know how, they don't know what they're looking at. So at the very least, if you can track, and a lot of people I see people starting to do that, and that's where spreadsheets is a great place to start. And now as you're a bigger company and you're starting to grow, now it's like, okay, I want to know my work in progress. And that's a conversation that comes with time, that comes with understanding good, impeccable job costing processes, good AR tracking. So as we think of this intentional growth phase, like, okay, I've checked my boxes. To recap, I got my process, I got my tracking systems, I have set up my terms with my suppliers, I've got good relationships with subs, I have a good receivables process, I have a project management software. Now I'm ready to grow. I'm going to be intentional. So the only thing I just kind of, just some little tidbits to think about, like as you grow, be strategic. Don't just go out and get, which sounds crazy, right? It's like, oh, there's all these sales, I'm just going to go out. Number one, can you handle it? And then thinking proactively, right? I know I've said that a few times, but if I go out and get 200 jobs tomorrow, let's use 200. What's that going to take me as a company to actually do that work? Well, that's going to take me 2 more salespeople. That's going to take me another project manager. That's probably going to take me another office admin. That's going to take me a biller, right? Realistically, if you think about your goal and work it backwards, right? Like work it backwards, because it's great to say, I want to hit $10 million. Well, if you're at $1 million and you want to hit 10 million by the end of the year, going out and selling more jobs isn't the only thing you have to do to hit that 10 million. You have to be able to support that 10 million backwards and work it with your, it comes with your people, your processes, your strategies, right? And again, if I can give one piece of advice, it's evaluate. If you don't know where to start, just start looking and ask questions. Because that's the biggest thing I tell people, that work with us. Like, I don't care if you don't know, I understand. And you kind of said this earlier, you probably didn't start your roofing company or solar company because you love bookkeeping, right? I don't know that I've met a roofing solar contractor that was like, I love accounting, that's why I started my roofing company, right? 90% of the time, you went into business because you liked the industry, you knew it, you were good at it, whatever that is. And so sometimes we're afraid to admit that we don't know what a gross profit is. We don't know how to track that number, but don't be afraid to ask the questions. And that's where, back to our other point, like support, like put people on your team that are smarter than you in the areas that aren't your strength. And bookkeeping can really be one of those. And help them educate you, but always evaluate. Don't be afraid to look, even if you don't understand.
RoofCON's amazing. Getting to see all the speakers like Nick and Eric and especially Tim Tebow. Very exciting and eye-opening.
Amazing speakers and great knowledge. Keep it up.
First RoofCON, been following Hunter and the Revolt clan for quite some time, and it's definitely been a lot more than what we expected.
This event is getting better and better.
So if you're going to go to one roofing conference, make sure that it's RoofCON.
RoofCON 2023 returns to Orlando, Florida, November 9th through the 11th. Get your tickets at roofcon.com.
We are back from a great commercial break, and the people that are watching later or listening later won't have any idea of what just happened because we're going to cut this up. So I'm going to re-ask my question, Michelle. My question was, can we talk about emergency funds? What's a good idea for setting up an emergency fund for your business?
Yes, and mic check. You guys can all hear me again. Sorry about that.
Great, we can hear you.
Yay! So emergency fund, that's such a good point. I love that you brought that up because again, that's something people probably don't think of it. And obviously I didn't even think of mentioning it until you said it, but yes, right? The first question I ask people when they're thinking of like, what should my cushion be? I say, how much does it cost you to operate your business? And ideally strive to have 3, because if I didn't sell a job tomorrow and I couldn't collect on a job, right, you have to think of what our AR terms can be sometimes. So if it cost me 10,000, I'm thinking smaller, right? If it cost me 10,000 to operate my business, if I didn't sell a job tomorrow, I would want to have a 30,000 cushion. So I could still go through a 3-month, hard time maybe, right? So I would say like, try to stockpile, try to put away, right? That net profit you're making at the end of the day, put some away for those days when sales are down, things aren't going your way, something happened personally, right? If you can float your business if you can float your overhead for 3 months, that's kind of where I would start. What if I were telling you like, what should be my cushion? 3 months of your overhead might be an aggressive goal depending on the size of your company, but something to strive for. And if you're hitting 3, hit 4, hit 5, because you have to think worst case scenario. And that's such a good point and such a great thing for people to think about that maybe they don't. You just never know, right? You never know when something's not going to go your way, or you had to take a break for a month, or, you went and got married. So you took your honeymoon off and nobody else sold but you, but you just don't know. So, wonderful.
I've got another question in here of what about alternative ventures for cash flow?
Alternative ventures for cash flow. Well, that's a good one.
Tyler. Oh, go ahead.
No,
I don't actually know what he means by this question, so maybe you do.
Alternative ventures for cash flow. So I'm not 100% either. If I were willing to bet, it's like, where else can you make money that's not going to cost you a lot of overhead, right? Like, where else can I help improve my revenue without spending any more? That's kind of how I take that question, because that's essentially how you improve your cash flow. So, like adding solar, right? Maintenance divisions, right? Some people will add a maintenance division, which can be really profitable. Going out and repair division, things like that. Adding gutters, exteriors, right? Any of those things you can add on your business that have slim margins, right? You don't want to get too. I mean, there's, that's for all you wonderful salespeople over at RoofCON who can dive into all the different ventures you can kind of tackle, but find ones that aren't going to necessarily cost your business anymore. Solar's a great one. Someone threw that out in the chat. That's wonderful. Yes.
Solar's, well, and I say this, I'm going to preface this by saying that I have not sold solar. However, in my mind, solar seems like a good one in the sense of you could partner up with like an EPC partner where you could go out and sell it and they're doing the fulfillment on it. And you're basically, I know I'm oversimplifying it, and all the people in here are going to say there's way more to that. And I'm sure there is. But if you can find, to your point, things like that can bring in, anytime that there's something where, yes, it's going to cost not a lot of money,
Yes.
and it's going to add profit to your bottom line. Yeah, 100%. That's a good idea.
Well, and anytime, just to stay on that additional ventures, anytime you're thinking of adding a different component to your business, whether it be, I'm going to do exteriors, I'm going to add a maintenance division, right? It's kind of goes back to that last thing we talked about, which was be strategic. Think about what that's going to take you, the training time, right? I'm gonna hire a salesperson, but I still got to train them. So when you, again, bringing all those things we just talked about, the cushion, the what is it going to cost me? What am I going to have to float to actually get this division off the ground? Because you don't just say, I'm going to open up a solar division and it makes you money instantly. I'm going to have to train my employees. I'm going to have to hire probably some salespeople who speak that language. I'm going to have to, invest in some solar product, which could be more expensive, right? So what is that as a company? How is that going to hit my overhead? So I make sure that venture didn't completely derail me from my other growth goals.
Okay, so as we're finishing up, I know we had to cut off the presentation too. Did you have anything else on that?
No, I was kind of just wrapping up here and just tying it all back together. It's all just things we've talked about to get to those goals and that strategic growth. But the only thing I wanted to mention here as we're starting to wrap up is for those of you who are live, if you want to scan this QR code, you can get a free download of a How to Review Your Financials Yourself book. So it's an ebook, kind of walks you through, if you have QuickBooks Online, how can I look at my numbers? How can I make sure I'm doing things right? How can I make sure I kind of have my ducks in a row? So scan this QR code. For those who are just listening, head to our website and kind of check out that download from there. Reach out to us if you're interested, for those who aren't live today. But go to 24hourbookkeeper.com and we can get this over to you.
We'll drop a link in the comments too
Awesome.
of this live video, so that way, if you're just watching on your phone, you don't have the availability to scan the code. That way, you could still have a link to click to take you to claim the ebook. Yeah. We appreciate you doing that too, because that's huge for people to have something that they can then take with them and be able to refer back to. So that's great. We appreciate you guys for doing that.
Oh yeah, it's a great place to start, right? If you're I don't want to say afraid, but if you're not sure of how to make that call and ask for the help or evaluate the help, this gives you some back end knowledge. So, okay, I'm going to go. It's kind of like giving you the ability to go research for yourself and see where you're at, and then evaluate. Yeah, I need help. No, I'm doing all right. Okay, it's a good way to kind of get a pulse on where you feel like your business is at, as far as checks and balances, ducks in a row, ready for growth.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show and talking through this. I know, like I said in the beginning, this is something where I might have told you this ahead of time, but we polled our group earlier in the year and we were trying to figure out what type of content people are wanting besides the content that we're already putting out at RoofCON. So we said, hey, besides this, what would you guys want to know about? And the number one answer was financial knowledge. So people are, it's obviously a bottleneck in so many people's businesses. And people, like we talked about earlier, they don't really get into roofing because they love bookkeeping, right? But it is a part of the business. You do need to at least be able to have some sort of idea of what's happening so that you can make smart, educated decisions and you're not just jumping out and getting the truck before you're able to, or make sure that you have those healthy margins and you're, tracking these metrics before you go out and spend money that you don't actually have.
Right.
So I really appreciate you hopping on and I appreciate you dropping the ebook for the listeners. If you've stuck around, you've watched the whole episode, we really appreciate you. And I recommend that you go get your RoofCON ticket. Yes. The link is down below here. So roofcon.com, you can get your tickets to one of the best shows in the industry. The best show, if you ask me. I might be a little bit biased. In Orlando, Florida, November 9th through the 11th. Michelle, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. It was great talking about financials, which is not always an exciting topic, but we try to make it exciting. So if you want to talk more about financials, stop by. We'll also be at RoofCon. Stop by and visit us and hit us with more of your questions.
If someone wants to find out more, they should just go to 24hourbookkeeper.com.
Yep, 24hrbookkeeper.com. Come check us out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you
Thanks,
so much for
Diego.
tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time.
Thank
Peace
you.
out.